This is a summary of week 3 of Patrick Lecture 6, the human role in the spiritual and the material universes. And in this section, I gathered up the material in the lecture that refers to authority, that refers to resistance to authority in various configurations. And I referenced Patrick Lecture 46 on authority, which shows it doesn't matter what your rebellion is or what your submission is, you'll come to a similar place, which is the goal is to find your inner authority. So our resentment of outer is because we're not aligned with the inner. So we feel controlled because we have given up the steering wheel. We can't find the steering wheel. So rebellion of any kind is an act of protest. Something's not right. And it is fueled by, in this case, in a spiritual case, by resistance to everything. So name what you resist, doesn't matter. The resistance is your life force wanting to claim its authority, not being mature enough to access divine inner authority, and so looking for control mechanisms. And that's what you feel from the outer world, control mechanisms. So my control is being messed with by your control. I am dictating to you what your control method should be, or that it should not exist at all. On a spiritual level, we're doing the same thing. So basically, we're trying in our rebellion, we're trying to find a safe place to throw a tantrum and act out and be right. In a spiritual sense, we don't want to play the game as it is laid out. We don't want to, what we perceive as submit. We don't comprehend surrender, and we don't access our inner divine, so we can't see that surrender starts inside. I surrender to my divine authority, which by the definition of the word divine would align with any truly divine authority. But that is not our experience on the planet. Our experience here is of having people tell us they are the divine authority. God spoke to me, not you. I have earned the degrees. I have the knowledge. I have the experience. It's nothing but an expanded experience of being parented by other people who are trying to put us down because they may not have access to their inner authority either. So they rely on externals. So we wind up being a bunch of kids throwing snowballs at each other or rocks, rather than understanding that once we find our divine authority, it will help us understand the other and be more able to work with rather than be manipulated by. Help us understand that their temporary dominance does not invalidate our inner authority, so that we can lose some battles and say, well, you can't win them all. So the second aspect is rebellion against authority as children or later as adults is actually a way of hiding our rebellion to all authority. And imagine for a moment that this is requesting editing privileges of the divine plan. What you're saying is, I don't think you got it right, spirit, God, whatever. I think this needs to be tweaked. I have the answer. I may not be able to offer the edit, but in a sense, if I can get you to admit it's not perfect, then somebody will edit. So if I can't do it or won't do it, somebody else can do it. But if the plan's not perfect, why would an edit make it perfect? There's a flaw in our argument that comes from how we deal with human beings, how we deal on this planet. So that if you're demanding editing privileges for yourself or someone else, when is this going to end? When will it be perfect? What will be enough? So I'm inviting you to see that resistance to authority is how we avoid all authority. It's our escape hatch to authority. And so it never ends. You answer one issue, another one crops up. The second larger topic of this section is about spiritual transference. Once we throw the word father or mother at the force of divine creation, it brings in the archetype that we are programmed with. It brings in the parent, and it brings in our experience of being parented by a flawed human being. And so the word itself pulls forward from the global human condition, from civilization and the process of civilization, from the cultures that we happen to have accessed or been born to, the cultures we've been influenced by, our genealogical connection to other individual spirits who are resolving their own stuff, as well as what we're formulating. It brings all of this in. It's a mess. So once they are in our field, once we have used this word to describe spirit and pulled in this energy, it creates kind of an ongoing battle because it takes us right back to the parent-child dilemma, which is a human experience because it is a spiritual experience. So in the creation lectures, Patrick lectures 18 to 22, the guide describes what is universally intuited in most religions as a fall from grace, the fall from heaven, et cetera, et cetera. The Patrick describes it in more amorphous terms and says, the guide says, I'm doing the best I can. You guys don't have the language. You don't know what I'm describing. I'm trying to do the best I can, but it's far more amorphous than a human struggle, that there was a fall and that some of us abused the divine gift of free will and so-called fell, meaning shifted. There may not be a place differential and there's no specific action. It's a matter of shifting one's attitude. Imagine for a moment that you're in a group of people and you're having a really good time, and all of a sudden, for whatever reason, internal, external, you sour on the companionship, the place, the topic, the attitude, you drop out. You don't have to move, you have dropped out. This is the fall, where we abused our self-will and said, I can do better, or you're not doing it right, or any one of 10 million permutations of that. So that in the abuse of self-will, we still have some fragment of that. Now, the guide teaches that we have worked our way back. Plants are at a different level, animals are at a different level, crystals and minerals are at a different level. There's lots of spirits who haven't yet budged out of this numbness. But we have. As humans, we have choices. We have a capacity to grow that is somewhat unique. So we have abused our free will, and we're here to transform that by understanding it. Any abuse contains some negativity and some FBMD are the initials I use, false belief, misconception, or distortion. It's trying to cover all bases because it can be very subtle or it can be very big. We are here to work those out because that's what our self-will is attached to. And the idea is that we wish to experience the pain and suffering that this attachment inevitably creates for us and others, or both. And the purpose is for us to understand the wrongness of that, the negativity, the lack of love, and release our attachment to it, because it is not the problem. We release our attachment to it, and then we transform in our understanding so that it doesn't reattach in a similar way. Now, some people see this as a solution. When, oh, when do I graduate from this lesson? I would like to suggest that a human lifetime is very short. I know how long the afternoons can feel, how long we have to wait for school to open, how long we have to wait for our next raise or to meet someone. But in the long run, human life is very short. We're not meant to solve 5 major issues in one lifetime. We're not even meant to solve one and coast for the remainder of our life. If you are here and you are human, you have work to do. If you have a major task, why would that task not occupy a lifetime? Because there's the large section of it, and then there are the effects and the ways we can get caught. And then there are the ways we unwittingly copy or spread it. There's a way where we spread it without realizing what we're doing. This is a lot of intense, subtle work that is honorable and real and needs to be done. And it is our willingness to do the work that proves that we got it. So instead of saying, oh, I understand, and then moving on, the question is, did you? And are you willing to notice it? Are you able and willing to notice it in all versions that it comes up? Or are you really saying, I get that I shouldn't do that, let's move on, without truly releasing your rebellion, your personal issue? So the rest of your life can be a test of your major life task. I try to be humble about this and say things like, for instance, I have been in more or less conscious awareness since I was 40. I'm 75. That's 35 years of working on this stuff. Most of that full time. I was granted the life privilege of being able to devote a lot of time to path work. And I say full time not because I did it 40 to 60 hours a week, but that everything I did got permeated by it, so that I would use every other human activity to further what I tried to understand with path work, which I believe is quite possible. So after that many years, have I conquered it? No, I have not. It crops up constantly. And I can laugh at some aspects of it. But of course, when it crops up, it's touching into aspects of me that have not fully let go. When I was a kid, if you walked through certain fields, you had clover burrs that stuck to you. And they are tenacious. They grab a lot. And it takes some work to get it out. And then you toss it over here and it sticks to that. Or you sweep it over there and it sticks to something else. They are hard to get rid of. That's what false beliefs are like. They're very sticky. They promise bliss and happiness and shortcuts, but they don't deliver it. And we fall for them. So in the imperfect human condition, as long as we're here, we have the opportunity to do more work, to do the work more completely, to do what I like to call extra credit work, so that we are a little bit further ahead than we originally planned to be. I believe that the spiritual contract is very elastic and will allow for people to work off some extra stuff. And that's why other issues may come up. You're allowed to tap into those as well, but not because you're finished with your life task, but because completing one task will enable you to work on other aspects that may not be a central point in this lifetime, but still need work. So in my joking comic sense, I like to do extra credit because it reduces the number of times I have to come back. And perhaps allows me to work more subtly than in the grosser sense. And while that can be extremely painful to work on subtleties, it also allows for more thorough work. For instance, think I come up with ordinary examples. You walk into a room that's an absolute nightmare, and all you can do is go through in waves. You pick up the dirty dishes, you pick up the laundry, you pick up the magazines. This is mother with young children speaking here. You go through in waves, doing what you can in the moment. You may never get around to the subtle stuff. You don't have time. Going around and committing to doing what you can is one level of commitment. And then the level of commitment may become, the room is technically clean. What else could be useful for spiritual purposes? For instance, rearranging the furniture sounds trivial, but it also changes our perspective on how we interact. Changing the way furniture is placed affects our attitudes, our emotions, our feelings. Why would we not experiment with that to see if there's a better configuration for us? Now, I'm using this in a teasing sense because it's everywhere. It's anything you touch. So I like to mention the very, very mundane aspects of life because they're very available to anyone, rather than being specialized, where we can toss it off and say, I'm not an astrophysicist, I don't have to rethink my theories of the universe. They're just rearranging the furniture. They're just trying to see things from a different perspective so that all the available facts fit, all the available human needs are met in the case of furniture. So, silly examples aside, I hope you read the lecture. This is a whopper. Patrick Lecture 6, The Human Role in the Spiritual and Material Universes. And thanks for listening.